Welcome everyone to this webinar on Qlik and Salesforce.com integration. My name is Daniel Pilla and I am a solution architect with Qlik. In this webinar, I will be covering the following. What makes Qlik unique? In almost every webinar, I like to provide a broad overview of the Qlik platform. This includes some of our core differentiators, fundamentals on how Qlik operates, and is intended to give you an idea of the scope of our platform. CRM versus sales analytics. This subject explores why there is a need for a solution like Qlik when exploring analytics in and around your CRM environment. Qlik and Salesforce.com integration. This bullet is the breadth of the presentation, and I've broken down the standard integrations that we see into three areas: data, embedding, and authentication and authorization. We will be covering each one of these areas in depth. Resources. Lastly, I will leave you with a number of resources where you can continue to experience, learn, and review the power of Qlik together with Salesforce.com. So let's discuss what makes Qlik unique. What Qlik is primarily known for is its ability to associate data from many different sources. You may not only have data within your CRM, such as Salesforce, but potentially also out in Google Analytics, in flat files like Excel or CSV, maybe data from a REST API, or potentially even from SAP HANA, SQL Server, Oracle, and the list goes on and on and on. And what makes Qlik unique is we have an in-memory associative analytics engine that's able to handle as many different disparate sources as you throw at it. Now, this associative engine, what it does is it takes all of that data from all of those different disparate sources and it maps and indexes them and brings that data compressed into memory, typically around 10% of the original size. Now, what is the in-memory associative analytics engine that I'm talking about? Think of it as the ability to explore your data without hierarchical limitations. At all points in time, you can see the entire story that resides within your data. Take this simple example, for example. Let's look at three different columns, so product, country, and region. In this case, there's a single selection in the product field, and we can see that that selection is in green. Everything associated with that selection is shown in white, and everything not associated is shown in gray, meaning that we've never sold this product in this country and thereby that region. This is extraordinarily powerful for two reasons. Number one, for data discovery, to be able to see what is not associated. And number two, for data validation. Maybe you, in fact, thought that you had sold that product in that country, but Qlik is immediately showing you that the data is saying otherwise. Now, once you've brought all of your data into memory, we then focus on centralized data governance and security. Now, in this webinar, we'll only be talking about data governance and security more in the realm of how that works with Salesforce. Just note that we do have many videos and a lot of content talking about this specifically. At a high level, you could work with Active Directory, single sign-on, SAML to make sure that the right users are authenticated into the system. And then we talk about data authorization and security. So let's say I have potentially 100 people that all have access to a Qlik application. I need to make sure that the right people see the right data. So let's say a Northeast manager only sees data that pertains to the Northeast region. Maybe an individual sales rep only sees data that pertains to that sales rep's name. So that's row-level security as well as column-level security. Maybe a certain individual doesn't have the right to see a social security number field. That can be excluded from the application as soon as the user enters. Now, a really large differentiator for Qlik is the fact that it's a one-time build for all users and devices. I can build out a single application that can serve a very wide audience of users because of the fact that we have row and column level security. As well, it can also serve all devices. Qlik is one of, if not the only vendor on the marketplace that's built entirely mobile first, all HTML5, JavaScript, and CSS based. Now, because Qlik is browser based, I can pull this open on an Android, a tablet, a desktop, an iPad, and regardless of whatever that screen size is, Qlik will not only rescale, but it will actually re-render those objects accordingly. So you don't have to build for each individual device. It's a one-time build. Qlik is also built off of open and standard APIs. So what makes Qlik especially unique is it's highly extendable and embeddable, which is one of the key pillars of what we're going to be presenting today. If you wanted to build your own custom visualizations, build your own UI off of the Qlik engine, or even just simply take applications or single objects from applications and embed them into an intranet, or in this case, into Salesforce.com. Qlik has made that very, very easy to do. So the key takeaway here is you're not at all stuck with what's in the box. Finally, Qlik offers a native ETL layer, so extract, transform, and load. Odds are your data in Salesforce isn't perfectly aligned with your data, for example, from Google Analytics or potentially from SQL Server, etc. So what Qlik provides is the ability to do data cleansing, data manipulation, data staging, so you don't have to purchase potentially multiple tools to consolidate all of your data within Qlik. All of that can be done and handled out of the box. Now, the reason I show this slide is, again, to give you the idea that Qlik truly is an analytics platform. We're a lot more than just a visualization vendor. There is a lot more under the covers, so we will actually be going through many of these points, and many of these points are very relevant for today's webinar. Let's now shift gears and talk about CRM reporting versus sales analytics. CRMs are known for their strong operational capabilities, but not for their analytical capabilities. They are designed with a focus on the customer specifically, and are not intended to analyze other aspects and areas of the business. Some CRMs do offer bolt-on analytical offerings, but many are unproven and immature. These offerings are also typically limited in what sources you can analyze. Reporting within CRMs does exist, but it is typically complex, heavy, and limited in scope. Data is siloed within your CRM. Most companies do not want to store all of their data within their CRM systems just so they can analyze it in conjunction with their CRM data. An analytical tool is needed for the CRM system to be used as a source of data rather than the centralized data repository. Data is also bound to hierarchical structures, which is inherently limiting and non-intuitive. CRMs in general have limited visibility, strictly focusing on the customer, and is frequently difficult to make strategic decisions without seeing other data points, correlations, and trends that are housed in other systems. With Qlik, you are able to leverage your CRM as any other data source and combine that with your ERP data, marketing data, operational data, HR data, and much, much more. This allows you to see the whole story in one centralized platform. Having all of the data in a single location allows you to answer the questions you need quickly and efficiently, allowing you to act on them at the point of decision. With more than just CRM data at your fingertips, you can begin to analyze trends, patterns, and correlations across your entire landscape of data. With Qlik, you also have access to our library of advanced visualizations. Those visualizations, coupled with our associative engine, allow you to easily track historical purchasing patterns, or to forecast and predict what a customer might do with ease. Our associative engine enables you to explore data intuitively, freeing you from the constraint of predefined hierarchies. Explore the data how your brain works, not how your CRM works. Lastly, sales analytics with Qlik enables you to make strategic decisions and to plan accordingly, rather than just acting on the data that lies within your CRM. So what's the takeaway? CRM systems offer an integral, operational solution that is only a part of the sales analytics picture. CRM systems were not built for sales analytics, but can serve as an important source of data and potential delivery mechanism of other sales analytical offerings. The point is, good enough analytics should not be acceptable. We should hold analytics to the same standard that we hold other solutions, rather than just looking for a quick fix. Let's now take a look at the many ways that Qlik Sense integrates with Salesforce.com. Qlik Sense integration with Salesforce typically falls into one of three categories. Data connectors. The Salesforce data connector from Qlik enables users to load data from Salesforce alongside other disparate data sources. Embedding Qlik Sense into a host application. The single API from Qlik Sense makes it possible to bring the Qlik Sense experience directly into the Salesforce environment, all within a single line of code. You can also leverage the capability APIs if you'd like to offer a more customized experience using JavaScript. Using host application security to authenticate users to Qlik Sense. Salesforce provides identity provider capabilities to Salesforce logins to authenticate to Qlik Sense using SAML 2.0. Let's start with Salesforce data. To connect to Salesforce, an app developer creates a connection to Salesforce using the Salesforce connector. The Salesforce connector handles authentication and authorization to Salesforce for data acquisition purposes by requiring user ID and token as well as password for access. Once connected, Salesforce makes available the appropriate tables for the user connecting. The user picks the data they want using the data preview and loads the data into Qlik applications. After creating the connection, it may be used again across multiple applications. One of the key benefits to using Qlik and the Salesforce connector is the ability to load data from disparate data sources into a single Qlik application. What this means is you can build a consolidated data discovery experience from all of your data sources. In a Qlik Sense application with Salesforce data, it is common to have tables such as opportunities, contacts, accounts, and a calendar or two which can be generated by Qlik. However, you are not limited to this data whatsoever. At any point in time, you can bring in additional data to map trends and correlations across your entire landscape of data. So what I'm going to do now is give you a brief demo of the Salesforce connector. I've created a brand new application. I've come into the Add Data wizard and I've selected Connect My Data. In here, you can see a number of default connectors that we have shipped with Qlik. Note that this list is by no means exhaustive. Now, when I select the Salesforce connector, it brings me to a connection pane where I'm prompted to enter some credentials, my username, my password, my token, and the URL potentially, and again, a number of other options below. So what I'm going to do is just enter my username for my sandbox environment. I'll type in my password. I'll copy over my security token, and then I'm going to copy over my URL that points at my sandbox. Let's give this a connection name. Let's call this just Salesforce connection and hit the right arrow at the bottom. Now this has authenticated me into Salesforce, and it's showing me the tables and the data that I have access to pull from. In this case, I am a system administrator, so I should have access to everything within the Salesforce system. Now, as it's loading all of those tables, you'll then see that whole list that's been populated, and there are quite a few. So I might want to search for one. In this case, let's search for the opportunity table. Now, when I select the opportunity table, the connector will go out. It will query Salesforce to give me an extract of potentially what that table looks like. Now, in this case, we happen to have over 600 fields in our Qlik sandbox that we use. So what I'd like is I'll click over onto the metadata. I'll click off of that, which will deselect all of the fields, and let's just select the ones that we need for this demonstration. So I'll select the ID, the account ID. Let's do the name, the stage, and the amount. And let's just take a look at what that looks like. Now it's gone off, it's revised that query, and it's going to give me an extract of just those individual columns. Now, once that's returned, we can analyze that to make sure that it is in fact what we're looking for. and I can either hit load data and finish, or prepare my data, or select potentially additional Salesforce tables that I'd like to relate to. Let's shift gears over to embedding. Why embedding? Number one centralized location. It is highly beneficial to embed Qlik Sense within Salesforce.com so that your end users have a cohesive, simplified, and actionable experience. This enables users to make the decisions they need to at the time they need to, as opposed to having to navigate to potentially many different solutions. Having both Qlik and Salesforce in the same location saves time, increases productivity, and adds value to the end user experience. Number 2, increase in adoption. Rolling out a new platform across the organization can be a burden, and frequently you will find that some users might resist, attempt to leverage it, and get confused and then abandon, or simply never use it until explicitly forced. Qlik's lightweight browser-based solution allows you to easily embed an application, single sheets, or single objects directly where the user needs them. This enables the user to have access and interaction with Qlik Sense without having to change their day-to-day. Lastly, insight into action, data at the point of decision. We at Qlik leverage Salesforce as our CRM internally, and we have Qlik Sense embedded in Salesforce.com across our sales team. We use Qlik every day to drive our own business, and each one of our account executives uses analytics through Qlik to make faster and smarter decisions, potentially without even realizing that they're using Qlik. Now I'll demonstrate Qlik Sense embedded directly inside of Salesforce.com. So here you can see I'm looking at my own custom Salesforce sandbox where I've embedded Qlik Sense. And you can see that there are a number of sheets from Qlik Sense applications that have been embedded directly into a custom homepage for this user. Now here's just an example, but in this case, we're looking at a sheet that's giving information on quota, closed won, forecast, forecasted close, and I am a regional director in this role. So I can see that there are 4 account executives beneath me. So I can see where my whole team is at this quarter, as well as make any selection onto, let's say, an individual rep to view what their quota is and what their progress is for the current quarter, as well as the current year. Now note, as I scroll down, those selections have carried to additional sheets. This is optional, but in this case, I want the flow to make a selection here and have that carry throughout the same application down towards the additional sheets. In this case, we're looking at an extension object. It happens to be a sang key, where we're looking at the flow through different stages of the pipeline and then different industries that those opportunities are actually compromising or comprised of. Now scrolling all the way to the bottom again, we have a third sheet where we can see opportunity by state, some closed won, commit, and best case, which is how we categorize it internally, as well as a heat map on the right to show where their pipeline and commit relies throughout the rest of the year. Beneath, note that we have a table with Marketo scores and data hug scores that have been brought in to Qlik Sense. Now, if I sort this by, let's say, grand total, one thing that we look at internally is Marketo and data hug. So Marketo meaning how much a client or a customer or a prospect is reaching out to Qlik, so opening up emails, initiating conversations, etc. Data hug, rather, is the reverse. So how much are we actually then reaching out to our customer base or our clients? And these are the appropriated scoring systems. So what I note is, if I look at this eGet opportunity, we have 100,000 currently improved value with a decently high Marketo score, but a pretty low data hug rank. So this might be something as a regional director I might want to drill into. Now, as I make a selection, note that that selection within a Qlik Sense table has taken me directly to that account page within Salesforce. And as I scroll down, I now have additional sheets within Salesforce that have then automatically selected that account page that I'm currently on. So as an end user, I don't need to necessarily go in and then reselect an account. It's automatically been done for me and it's pinpointing that specific area. In this case, it's in the San Francisco region. Now here, this map is actually GeoAnalytics. We acquired GeoAnalytics in January of 2017, and it's giving us advanced mapping functionality as well as out-of-the-box geospatial functionality. So I can see, number one, where is this client located, as well as then drive times around that client. So I can see a 30-minute drive radius, a 45-minute drive time area, and a 60-minute drive time area. Now note that this selected account is actually in the industry of retail. But if I wanted to look for other accounts nearby, I can search for retail. And then it's drilled in. Now, in this case, it's drilled all the way in to show me that there aren't any accounts within a 50-mile radius. I can expand that out and say, look for an 80-mile radius. Still no accounts. Look for a 100-mile radius. And note that there are some accounts in the area, but none within an immediate drive time. Now, scrolling down further, I have an additional sheet that's then showing me historical breakdowns. So account purchasing over opportunity. What's the discounting history? This is extremely advantageous for a new sales rep in a territory or an account to know historically what time of the year did they purchase and what discount did they receive, so they know what they're expecting. Also extremely important is to look at revenue by quarter. So for example, I can see that historically this account purchases in Q1 and has less budget, or at least less initiative, in Q2, Q3, and Q4, though they do have purchases there. So we might want to actually align some of our opportunities with their Q1 budget. Now I can always scroll down and look at the existing opportunity that I have and go directly over to that opportunity. This then takes me over to that Salesforce page with, again, embedded QlikSense objects as pertaining directly to that opportunity. And we can see that loading now as we scroll down, that it's now giving me the Marketo scores for this opportunity when people are actually reaching out and who they are, as well as some basic info and all of the contacts names. So I could then say, okay, well, judging on, this person hasn't reached out in quite a while. Maybe I want to reach out to them. Or in reality, this person is reaching out quite a large amount, or we're reaching out a lot to them. I might want to continue that chain to make sure that we're driving that sales process. Now, what we can also see is, again, that's just an embedded homepage and then embedded visualizations within the Accounts tab and the Opportunities tab. But what if I just want the full QlikSense experience directly within Salesforce? Now, as I navigate over to that tab, this is actually just a Salesforce web tab with, again, a single line of code that's just simply pointing at the URL of a specific QlikSense application. So I have the ability to do everything I would inside of QlikSense, navigate over to other sheets, and potentially even edit and do self-service all within the Salesforce environment. Alternatively, you can have more action-oriented Visualforce tabs. So in this case, I've taken a QlikSense sheet, embedded it in, and looked at specifically targeting opportunities based off of Marketo scores, hug ranks, and total opportunity value. So if I want to look at anything, for example, with a pretty high Marketo score, but a low data hug score, I've then filtered it down to those 4 opportunities, which I can see reflecting in that upper left quadrant, and then drill in specifically to any one of those ops or any one of those accounts. I've also set it up where I can see a Qlik Days Aging tab. This is, again, just a Visualforce page tab where I can then keep a clean and healthy pipeline. So one of the things we do at Qlik is to make sure that we don't have things sitting in the pipeline that haven't been updated, so we have an accurate and clean forecast. So for example, if this has been sitting for 540 days at a very early stage, I might want to go over to that opportunity and change and clean out that pipeline. So someone could theoretically come in, check this tab every single morning, and make sure that this is clean and empty. Those are just a number of the different things that you're able to do with QlikSense. And we will then go back to the presentation and explore how this is actually done. So now that you've all seen a demo, let's explore how it works. Embedding visualizations inside of Salesforce is as simple as a single line of code through Qlik's single configurator found in the Dev Hub. The single API is a URL-based API that allows you to target specific objects or sheets and can control interaction, selections, and more. This method of embedding in Salesforce can be leveraged in Visualforce pages, tabs, or components. Alternatively, you can simply take the URL to an app and drop that URL in a web tab. This allows the users to have the whole app at their fingertips without ever leaving Salesforce. The demo you just saw incorporated these methods of integration. If you do not want to leverage iframes or want a more customized experience, you can always leverage our Capabilities APIs, which provide the ability to use JavaScript to have complete control and even create custom visualizations on the fly. Now, we'll see a demo of the single configurator. Note that your hub might look slightly different depending on the version of Qlik Sense that you're running, but you should all see an ellipses either in the upper left or the upper right of the screen. Now, this is a drop-down menu, which includes a direct link over to the Dev Hub. Now, as soon as I select that link, note that it is just another endpoint within Qlik. You could always just type it in. Now, this area gives you the option of going to the single configurator and a number of other places, such as the extension editor, a mashup editor, a widget editor, and even the Engine API Explorer. In this demo, we'll explore the single configurator. Now, as soon as I enter the single configurator, it prompts me to select an app. And in this case, I'm going to select the sales demo that is currently embedded inside of the Salesforce environment that we just saw. Note you'll see a number of individual objects at the top, as well as I scroll down, links to actual sheets within the application, and you'll see that there's a corresponding URL and corresponding iframe code linking directly into that sheet. There are a number of options. For example, I can disable selections, disable interaction. I could also have preset selections to apply, though note that this can be done programmatically, and we'll explore that a little bit later. So I can always take this entire sheet, or for example, I just want, let's say, the bar chart, or the top right bar chart from this sheet. Let's go to General, let's uncheck Disable Interaction. Let's now select this URL, copy it, and paste it into a browser. Now you can see that I have that whole entire bar chart where I can make any selections that I'd like, now completely within the realm of its own URL. So I could take this URL, I could take that iframe code and embed it directly into a Visualforce page inside of Salesforce. So again, note that I can take individual sheets or individual objects and very, very easily reference them inside of the Salesforce environment. And that is the single configurator. Let's now look at two examples of using the single API with Visualforce. In this example, we're looking at the home page that we saw in the demonstration, and we note that we have an individual Qlik Sense sheet that's been embedded into a Visualforce page that's then being leveraged inside of a home page component. You can see that this has been executed through a single line of Apex iframe code, where we're referencing that application as well as that individual sheet, telling it to clear all selections on entry, as well as giving it a unique identity. Now, this identity is one of the most powerful aspects of the single configurator because it allows isolation of these individual iframes. For instance, if I have 5 different tabs open with different accounts on each tab, I don't want my selections to carry across tabs. However, if I have 3 individual sheets on my home page, I want to make sure that they have the same identity because I do want a single selection to carry down to those additional sheets. So it allows for isolation and segmentation of your iframe code. The single API also makes it easy to dynamically select parameters within a Qlik Sense app based on where the user currently is inside of Salesforce. In this example, we've embedded a Qlik Sense sheet with GeoAnalytics into the account layout. Whenever a user navigates to an account, the account is then inserted into the single API URL to select that value in the account name field in the Qlik Sense application. There is also an identity parameter comprised of the account name and the account city state to ensure that each account tab is in isolation from the rest. Again, meaning that selections do not carry from tab to tab. This allows for a seamless experience as you navigate through the Salesforce environment. So now that we've seen integration with Salesforce Classic in the desktop, let's talk a little bit about integration with Salesforce One. It's easy to expose Visualforce pages and tabs with embedded Qlik content through Salesforce One. This way, the experience is seamless whether you are at your desktop or out in the field on your mobile device. You are able to easily leverage which aspects of the Qlik experience you would like to include in Salesforce One through standard Salesforce administrative controls. Let's now take a look at how it's set up, along with a brief demo. So in this example, what I'd like to do is take this entire QlikSense application, starting with this sheet, and embed it as my landing page for my Salesforce One users. To do so, I've created a Visualforce page with the iframe over to that URL of the application. You'll also note that I've ticked off a checkbox for available for Salesforce One mobile apps and Lightning pages. Now, once I've created that Visualforce page, I can take that Visualforce page and reference it inside of a Visualforce tab. This tab is then exposed in my mobile navigation menu, where I can populate that menu for my Salesforce One tabs. Now, minimizing my browser, I'm currently using Air Server to show my iPad onto my PC screen. And you can note that, again, I can make selections, and I have a live QlikSense application directly inside of Salesforce One to potentially even begin to edit that application. Now you can also see that I have my standard menu, and let's say I navigate over to my accounts, and let's select an individual account. I've also exposed my Visualforce page in my accounts layout to be Salesforce One ready. That way, as soon as I come over to my accounts page, it will then load my QlikSense Visualforce tab, again, that includes GeoAnalytics on that specific account. So now that we've seen demos of QlikSense embedded in both Salesforce Classic and Salesforce One, let's explore QlikSense and Salesforce Lightning, Salesforce's new UI. Whether you are using the Salesforce Classic or the Salesforce Lightning experience, the integration of QlikSense is the same, but the method of setting it up is a little different due to the new construct of the Salesforce UI. With Salesforce Lightning, you can leverage the app builder to include Visualforce pages into custom home pages, accounts, and opportunities. You also have the ability to create custom Visualforce tabs and web tabs just as before. Let's now see how QlikSense integrates inside of the Salesforce Lightning interface. So what we're now looking at is my own development environment of Salesforce Lightning. And what I can see is I've created a number of different Visualforce pages. And if I click on any one of those, for example, this is just a sheet of QlikSense KPIs, I note that my Apex code, my iframe code using the single API is identical to that of the code in Salesforce Classic. So from this perspective, nothing's changed from the integration of QlikSense with Salesforce. However, the implementation of that code from a Salesforce perspective has changed. Now I would go over to the Lightning App Builder, for example, to build out a custom home page, a custom account layout. You can see that I've created several of them here. If I go ahead and create a new one, it prompts me to create several different options. So an app page, a home page, a record page. A record page, for example, might be an opportunity layout, an account page layout. Let's just create our own custom home page. Call this test. And you'll see that it gives me some templates to work from. So rather than including Visualforce pages into homepage components and then creating my own entirely custom homepage through that mechanism, I now basically choose a template, hit finish, and I have all of these areas where I can then quickly drag and drop all of my components. So if I take a Visualforce component and drop that in, you'll then see that that first component happens to be a Qlik Sense table. I can always scroll down and select my Qlik KPIs. So they have made it very, very easy to quickly integrate drag and drop visual pages, as well as many other standard Salesforce components, and quickly architect a homepage or an account layout. So from this perspective, the design and implementation is different in the Lightning experience, but the actual code behind it is identical. Now going out over to my Salesforce Lightning homepage, I can see that I have a number of Qlik Visualforce pages that I've embedded directly into my own homepage layout. And when that renders, I have the same Qlik experience where I can scroll down, select an individual account rep, go down again to the detail, and maybe even go over to that individual account. And now when I go over to that account, I've set up a very basic account page layout where I just have some general header information as well as then geoanalytics below. So the same functionality I have within Classic, as well as potentially, of course, having my own Visualforce tabs. You still have the capability to have web tabs. So I still have the entire application experience directly within Salesforce Lightning. Now that we've seen a number of demos and examples, let's talk a little bit about the security behind everything. Qlik Sense has the ability to act as a SAML service provider for authentication. Salesforce is able to act as an identity provider. As a result, leveraging Salesforce for authentication to Qlik is a straightforward process. The flow for how SAML works with Qlik Sense goes something like this. A user makes a request for Qlik Sense content, and this request can come from inside Salesforce. Qlik Sense sends a SAML request to the Salesforce IDP. Salesforce sends a SAML response to the Qlik Sense server to authenticate the user to Qlik. Qlik sends the content to the user's browser, and it is rendered for their use. Let's now see a brief demo of security. I'm going to sign in as one user who is acting as a regional director. So he happens to have a number of account executives beneath him. So when this regional director signs in, he expects to see data for a certain number of account executives so he can review his overall team's performance. Now note upon signing in, he has his own custom homepage with an application that is showing data points for, again, only account executives that roll up to him. In this case, Benjamin, Deborah, Eugene, and Tina. And at any point in time, he can look at his entire team. He can drill into an individual rep, scroll down, and see all of the data pertaining to those individual account executives. Now, however, if I close my browser to close the session and then reopen it, let's say I want to sign in now as an individual account executive. Let's say this particular user. Now signing in as this particular user, this user is acting as Benjamin Fernandez. So Benjamin signs in. Note he sees the exact same application, but he doesn't have the right to see information and data points for Deborah or Eugene or Tina. He's only able to see his current quota, his closed one, his forecast. So the idea with Qlik is you can roll out one application and have dynamic views based off of that application. One of the other fantastic points about integration with Qlik Sense's Salesforce is you can also leverage any attributes from the Salesforce engine, let's say a team, a division, some attribute, and leverage that within Qlik Sense security rules. So if I go back over, I know that, for instance, this user might be associated with a specific team. All of those attributes, going back to the Qlik Sense hub, I can make sure that individual streams show up. In this case, there's no applications in it, but based off of attributes within Salesforce, if I'm a Salesforce admin and I all of a sudden dictate that Benjamin is no longer on the Northeast team, he's on the Southeast team, I can have those automatically persist and reflect inside of Qlik Sense without having to mirror them manually. So we'll take a look at that now on how all of that is actually architected and set up. So let's now take a deeper dive into how security works between Qlik Sense and Salesforce.com. From a security standpoint, one of the most powerful integration options with Qlik and Salesforce.com is Qlik's ability to leverage attributes that exist inside of Salesforce for real-time access control. Through SAML, Qlik can take attributes sent from Salesforce and include them in security rules. These security rules manage access and usability across the entire platform. In this example, we've taken the team user attribute from Salesforce and dictated that if the user's value matches the same value of a custom property team in Qlik, grant the user access to that resource. For example, if the user's team value is financial services, grant that user access to the associated resource containing that same value in a Qlik Sense custom property. For example, the stream financial services. If at any point in time that user's team changes inside of Salesforce, that change will immediately be reflected inside of Qlik's platform. This allows for the Salesforce administrators to continue to drive hierarchical decisions across the Qlik platform without the need of duplication or replication. Once a user then has access to a stream, we want to make sure that the user has the appropriate data visibility within the apps inside of that stream. Section access refers to data level security within a single application. For example, if 50 users have access to an application, in many cases, each user should only see values associated with their own names. For example, sales rep Jane Doe only sees data related to the value of Jane Doe of the account owner field. Note, however, you can tie any user to any values of data. These values could be by region, by department, by role, etc. You also have the ability to exclude columns from the data model, such as salary or social security number, on a user-by-user basis. Together, you can achieve row and column level security within a single application, all while making sure that the right user has access to the right applications from Salesforce attributes. Now that you've seen the integration capabilities between Qlik Sense and Salesforce.com, here are some additional resources. The first is a YouTube video series, very high level, on integrating Qlik Sense with Salesforce. The second is embedding Qlik Sense in Salesforce technical tutorial video series. This series is run and presented by Jeffrey Goldberg. He is a principal enterprise architect, and he walks through from scratch connecting a Qlik Sense server to a Salesforce environment, all the way through embedding Visualforce pages within it. Finally, there are a multitude of Qlik sites, the first being Qlik Help. Especially the Qlik Developer Help site is very advantageous when you're exploring the APIs. Qlik Community is our open forum with over 100,000 active users. Qlik Branch, this is the site that hosts all of our open source extensions and other projects. So that Sankey that we saw is one of those. There is then the Qlik Live Demo site. So if you did want to peruse and start clicking through Qlik Sense applications, we do have that site available. And then finally, Qlik Continuous Classroom, which is the ability to sign up and take Qlik classes at your own schedule. So if you wanted to sign in and take individual modules once a week, twice a day, whatever cadence you set up, you do have the ability to learn more through that mechanism. So thank you all for attending. That does conclude our webinar for today. The attached slide deck, as well as the links for the resources, will be included along with this presentation, so you can access those there. If you do have any additional questions or follow-up items, please do not hesitate to contact your account executive and we can discuss this potentially further. Thank you all for your time, and take care.